Hey, this is Mark, and this is your daily Cornerstone connection. Well, one of the truths, one of the neat things about the Christian life is that God has called us to be a blessing to our community. And the Bible talks about that. And then I'll share a verse with you in a little bit from the book of Proverbs that just says that as we bring our Christianity, right, as we bring how God has commanded us to live into the community, the whole community can be blessed by that. And that's just such a cool thing, Here in Acts chapter 27, a lot of really interesting things happen. So as you know, Paul is sailing on towards Rome, right? I want to zero in on what happens here in the shipwreck, because during the shipwreck, it's kind of a scary time, right? It's a super scary time. Here we see the fairness, and here we see the wisdom of Paul being a blessing even to others. So in verse 40, they cast off anchors and left them at the sea, and at that time loosened the ropes and tied the rudders. Then hoisting the foresail to the wind, they made for the beach. But striking a reef, they ran the vessel aground. The bow stuck and remained immovable, and the stern was being broken up by the surf. The soldiers' plan was to kill the prisoners, lest any should swim away and escape. This is a problem for Paul because he's one of the prisoners. Have you ever been in a shipwreck before? Probably not, but maybe. I don't know. Okay, so here is the closest thing to a shipwreck I've ever experienced. The closest thing to a shipwreck. I was in grade school, and one of the few trips that I got to take with my parents was to a place called Lake Tahoe. And so it was like a little resort area, and there was like some lakes and stuff, and there was a really big lake, I guess. It's not like the Great Lakes. My wife would say that, but it's like a littler lake, I guess, but they still would run like little ferries and stuff, whatever, across. So I was on the ferry. And then there was this loud clanking like coming from the engine room, and all of a sudden the boat stopped. And there we were in the middle of the lake, and the boat was no longer moving. Luckily, it wasn't sinking, but it was not moving. And they had some engine malfunction, right? And so another boat came up next to ours, and we had to go and offload our boat and go on to this other boat. So as a kid, I was very excited, because anytime something happens that you know is not supposed to happen when you're a kid, this is very, very exciting to you, right? And so I was like, oh my goodness, what's happening? This is so cool. If the boat was sinking, I imagine my memory of this event would be very, very different. And I probably wouldn't have been as happy, but it wasn't sinking. But imagine being where Paul is, because not only is the boat going down, right, you run ashore, but also now this reality that they're going to kill all the prisoners. But now the centurion doesn't want Paul to die. And so in verse 43, it picks up here, it says, but the centurion, wishing to save Paul, kept them from carrying out their plan. He ordered those who could swim to jump overboard first and make for land, and the rest on planks or on pieces of the ship. And it was that they were all brought safely to land, and they wind up on land on Malta. And God has a special plan. We'll see this in tomorrow's reading for how God is going to use Paul in Malta. It's gonna be kind of a cool thing. But the bottom line is that God uses Paul to bless the community. He's a blessing to the prisoners. He was a blessing to the people running the boat, as we've seen previously. And now he gets to be a blessing to those in Malta. God will use you to bless your community. So here's kind of an interesting verse, I think, that just to kind of end on for this part. And I'm in Proverbs, and I'm in Proverbs chapter 29, and I'm coming down here to verse 4. Now, remember that Proverbs are not promises, but what they are is they are principles. They're principles that if we live by these principles, and genuinely speaking, this is a kind of life, and this is a kind of change that could happen. So Proverbs are really cool in that way. And so in Proverbs 29:4, it says, by justice a king builds up the land, but he who exacts gifts tears it down. And exact gifts would just mean to deal unfairly, to accept bribes, these sorts of things, right? So when the leader rules in justice, right, when there's justice in the land, what happens? Everybody prospers. Everybody prospers. When we live out justice, right? When we live out grace, when we live out mercy, we get to see the entire community from Marshfield to Stratford and beyond. We get to see us all prosper together. And isn't that a cool thing? Hey, I hope that you can use that as you live out your Christian walk. Be encouraged by the fact that you are, in fact, a blessing to your community. And I pray that even maybe in a specific way, you can bless your community this week. Well, hey, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.